Good morning. Thank you, Sandra. Make me cry before I even start talking. Jesus is speaking for the first time. We call it the Sermon on the Mount. He's saying things like this. We're going to do things differently. We're going to go beyond not committing adultery, beyond murdering. We're going to honor each other. We're going to treat each other with respect, and the audience is electrified. They're like, yeah, this sounds amazing. He tells them we're going to go beyond an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth because that's just limits on justice. And the audience is electrified. They're like, yeah, we're in. Whatever else is next, just say it. He says, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. You don't have to become those things. You already are those things. And they go, yeah, this is amazing. And then he goes, and then we're going to love our enemies. What? Now, if you imagine this crowd going, yeah, everything sounds really great up to this point, they go, well, hold on, can you just tease that apart? And he teases it apart this way. He says, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. I don't know about that. And he goes on to say that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. And even more, he says, if you love those who love you, what reward will you get? You've heard this many times. And not even the tax collectors doing that. Are they not doing that too? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Then they spit. Wait, go back one. This is my next text. Ignore that one. Jesus is saying the path to maturity, the path to perfection, the path to reflecting who we are supposed to be includes loving our enemies. And this may be the hardest thing for us to learn and the hardest thing for us to practice. And I'll tell you what, the older I get, this becomes the most difficult thing for me to do. Jesus goes on for 3 years to demonstrate and to live out what he means by love your enemies. He shows up with a basin and a towel instead of a sword. He rides a donkey instead of a war horse. We've got to take this very seriously, people. We've got to take it very seriously. So before I spend a couple more minutes talking about why this has become more important to me, I want to say that I understand what this does not mean, loving our enemies, and I want to share with you what I believe loving our enemies does not mean. It does not mean that we condone behavior that is evil and destructive. It does not mean that we ignore behavior that is evil and destructive. It doesn't mean that we forget that some people are dangerous and abusive and divisive and toxic. It is okay to love somebody and still take out a restraining order on them. Yes. Should I repeat that? I don't think Jesus is telling us that loving someone means that we have to live with toxic, abusive, and terrible behavior. You can still take a restraining order out and love a person. I don't think Jesus means that we are to condone or ignore the behavior. We're also, I think, this is not what loving our enemies means. I don't think it means escaping the consequences of some of our actions or some of the actions of people who do terrible things. My wife of 26 years, is this being recorded, by the way? Okay. Skip that story, never mind. Too late. Love you, baby. There is a stop sign a block away from our house. We've lived in this house for 16 years in sunny, beautiful Southern California, although you can imagine with your weather right now what it's like. She has treated this stop sign as a suggestion, which has led to 4 tickets at the same corner. A couple months ago, she got the 4th one. This is $1,600 worth of citations. When she got the last one, she came home with it and said, do you think they'll forgive me if I write a letter? No. No, they won't. She has many other faults. When she corrects us, we'll have a perfect marriage because I have very few growth areas, as she likes to call them. No, of course they're not going to forgive her because often what we want to do is escape the consequences of our behavior. And maybe loving our enemies doesn't mean that we release them of the consequences of behavior. Lastly, I want to say this before we get into the real difficult part of this teaching. When Jesus says love your enemies, I don't believe that he says you're required to reconcile to your enemies. Sometimes reconciling is just not possible because some people's behavior or the way they are is not going to change. And if that's the case, then, because it takes two people to reconcile, sometimes we have to admit that because of something that's happened between us, this relationship will never be the same again. I'll tell you right now, sometimes when I speak about this, someone in an audience is feeling released from that pressure or that burden that we have to reconcile. We don't have to reconcile. Sometimes it's not possible. You don't have to condone behavior that's injured you. Loving somebody doesn't mean that we release them from the consequences of their behavior. Are we good? Amen? We good? What does Jesus actually mean then by loving our enemies? Well, I think this. What does he mean? He means this. Matthew 25, then they spit in his face and they struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and they said, prophesy to us, Christ, who hit you? On the way to the cross, Jesus will experience these things: betrayal. He will be mocked, stripped naked, insulted, beaten, falsely accused, condemned, humiliated, they pierced his side, they bruised him, and they put him on that cross naked and left him there to die. How does Jesus respond? He says, Father, forgive them. What is Jesus demonstrating? He's demonstrating that evil is not overcome with evil. That violence is not overcome with violence. That intolerance is not overcome with intolerance. That betrayal is not overcome with betrayal. That mocking is not overcome with better mocking. Your mean tweet is not overcome with a meaner, is that a word, meaner tweet? I'm not Dwight Nelson, I only have 10 words to use in my vocabulary. That our hurt is not healed when we hurt other people, and that a bomb is not overcome or solved with a bigger, better bomb. But often that's how we live in this world. You injure me, I injure you back. You don't have highways here like we do back in Southern California. And the way people behave on our highways is exactly the way Jesus wants us to not behave. You cut me off, when I get a chance, I cut you off. Or I take this hurt home and eventually I release it on my family, all my anger and my frustration. I cannot carry this anger. You throw an elbow on your glorious drive to the basket. When it's my turn, I'm coming with elbows too. When Jesus says this is not how you overcome evil. What is the option then? The option is, as one of my friends puts it, there is another way. She said this actually in one of her presentations. There's another option. We can forgive. It is agonizing not to lash back. It is a form of suffering. It means absorbing debt, taking the cost completely on ourselves, and it hurts terribly. Many people would say it feels like a kind of death. Yes, but it is a death that leads to resurrection instead of a lifelong death of bitterness and cynicism. What is Jesus doing on the cross? Death that leads to resurrection, absorbing and not letting this pain be released back into the world. Are you with me? So, there is such a thing as redemptive suffering. And this is what we don't like about the cross. Is that on the cross, Jesus is showing us another way. And redemptive suffering calls us to loving our enemies absorbing pain and not releasing it back into the world. This is the way for Christians. So back home, try to imagine a hot day in August, 115 degrees. We're all in a picnic outside with my church. We're all so hot, we're hoping for this picnic to not last very long on a Sabbath afternoon. A little gang of kids forms. Little Levi is the leader. He's about 4 or 5 years old. And the criminal activity that they decide to engage in is that they're going to open all of the big coolers that we have full of water to keep people alive in this heat. And they get these cups, and they're all running around dousing the adults. Now, it was wonderful. But you had to act like you hated it, because if you didn't hate it, they would stop doing it, and you wanted them to continue doing it because it was great. There's a careful balance. You have to act like it's theater. Oh, no! Little Levi, don't get me with the cold water. Please get me with the cold water. He gets me wet, and I'm like, that's fantastic. I hate you so much. Oh, little kid. And they're like, he hates it. Let's run and do it again. So he runs and does it and keeps doing it until I'm now near hypothermia. And I decide, game's over, little kid. That's done. No more. And I see him over there trying to get his last little cup. He's trying to get it without spilling a drop, and now he's chasing me like, I want to get you. I'm like, yes, you are. No, you're not. I'm tired of this now. I don't know what to do now. So he's chasing me, and I'm still acting like I hate it. And then finally, I'm like, fine, let's get this over with. And I face him, and he's standing there holding his cup. Now, what I'm about to tell you is not something I'm proud of. He held that cup next to his face long enough for me to go, pfft. It was awesome. Once the water clears from his face, he's standing there, and he begins to cry, and now I'm feeling horrible. Buddy, I'm so sorry. He opens his eyes. He has internalized the pain, processed it, and then he goes, that's okay. And he runs away. Yeah, I thought that's magnificent, the ability to do that. Because I would have carried that for years as a grudge. And I would have gone back and got another cup and tried it again. Or maybe I'd gotten a stick or something to beat you. I mean, I would. This is not our nature, is it? Maybe this is why Jesus said the kingdom belongs to these, because they know how to process. And this is how it became real in my life. Some years ago, someone on the internet began to say really mean things about me. I want to read you some of them because I wrote them down. You can tell I became kind of obsessed. I got into what you call those YouTube spirals where you begin to just watch what these people are saying about you. I couldn't stop. My wife would say, you got to stop. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I would stop. And then at night I'd go, just a couple more minutes to see what he's saying. This man said the following. I wrote him down, yes. Sam Leonor, that's me, is a long-haired, true, I had long hair at that time, gyrating. I don't know what that means, but if he's talking about my dance moves, I do gyrate. I think he's talking about my preaching, so I'm trying to remain stationary nowadays. A long-haired, gyrating homosexual. Well, I'm not, but I don't see the insult in all this. Then he began to talk about me and my friends. These are pests, rodents, termites invading and destroying God's church. That's not nice. One of my friends does look like a rodent. I sent them the video and said, I think he's talking about you. Then it got not so funny. He began to say things like, These people, me and my friends, they mix truth with error. Their theology is not Christian. They are into Eastern mysticism, and they're probably Catholic. A Catholic is, if you're a Catholic, I apologize. This is how we often just insult each other. If you're Catholic, a little bit Catholic. He went on one day, he said, these are tools of Satan. The people putting on these programs, my friends and I were doing this program where we believe that calling people to love and follow Jesus. He says these programs, they know exactly what they're doing. They're marketing it to those who are the least able to detect falsehoods. I'm sorry to see so many young people sucked into their teachings. That would be you, young people. They are so vulnerable. They don't have the life experience to recognize what is really happening. And then it got really serious. He called us mystics. And then he said, mystics were killed in the Bible. There is no question about how God feels about strange doctrines in our church. And he just left that there. And I went and got some security cameras for my home. Because this went from gyrating, long-haired homosexual to mystics were killed in the Bible. And then I spent months, and I'm gonna be real with you guys now. I spent months in a spiral, wondering, first, is he right? Have I spent all of my ministry life leading people astray? It got deep into my heart, and I began to hate him for what he was doing to me. I spent a long time wondering if I should even stand and teach Jesus to people. Am I a mystic? Am I Catholic? Am I what? Am I gyrating too much? It messed me up. I had the worst kinds of thoughts about this individual. And I went to counseling. And my therapist one day said one of the most profound things. He said, Sam, pain that is not processed is passed on. And pain that isn't transformed is transmitted. Oh, I had to wrestle with that for a long time because first, am I processing this pain? Am I transforming this pain? But then I began to think about this person and thinking about what he must have been through that has caused him to transmit and pass on whatever pain he had. And one day I decided, well, I've got to change how this is. I've got to start praying for him. And I did. And it was the most difficult. My prayers began like this: Lord, by whatever means necessary, remove him from the planet Earth. I leave that to your care, gracious Lord. And I remember one day, after watching a few of these videos online on a Sabbath morning before going to church, which is how you never should prepare to go to church, by watching what someone's saying about you on the internet. I went to church, and our guest speaker, a good friend of mine, his name is Iki Taimi, he's preaching, and there's a moment during which he turns to me, and it was like Jesus was speaking to me directly through Iki. He said, you locked eyes with me, are the donkey. I said, no, you are the donkey. And he goes, no, you are the donkey. God speaks through us. We're the vessel. Why are you so concerned about what people say about you? It's not about you. And I knew Jesus was working on my heart. You've got to love this man. Get up and keep preaching. Doesn't matter what people say about you. So my prayers began to change. And then one day I decided, you know what? Because this person online gives his contact info in case somebody wants to know more, I decided I want to know more. So I emailed and texted him, and I called him. No response. So I said, every Monday morning when I come to work, that's going to be my discipline. Email, call, text. No response. One day, the little three dots appeared. And I was like, you're getting them. So I decided to start praying my prayers in my text message. God, help me to love this man, because you have commanded it. And I did this for a year, every week. I'll tell you, there was a transformation of this pain in my own heart. And it was being processed in a way that led to me being able to do the following. One day, because I never got a response, one day, my wife and I are at a large Adventist event, the General Conference. And we've been there for whatever long, 8, 9 days. I love it. It's loud and everyone's having fun in the exhibit hall. And at the last night of the General Conference session, we're walking through the exhibit hall. I look across the hall and there he is. I'm like, that's him. My wife's holding my hand and she sees the same thing and she just tightens up and says my name in Spanish, which is usually like a warning, Samuel. She's white, she doesn't speak Spanish, but when she says my name in Spanish, it means only one thing, Samuel. I'm like, oh no, this is happening, baby. Buckle up. I walk towards the man, and she's like trying to hold me, like, no. I'm like, yeah. By the way, this is completely out of character for me. I would not do this were it not for the fact that for a year I've been working. I've been processing, transforming my pain. When I get to him, I'm like, brother. He's talking to someone else. He does this. He goes, as if he has seen a ghost. So he prepares himself for battle. I could see him go, the gospel of truth, the breastplate of salvation, the sword of the Spirit. And, he does like a military, ready for battle. I'm like, brother, I've been texting and calling and emailing, and I know you've gotten them because I've seen the 3 dots. And he goes, yes, but I am not allowed to talk to you. Like, who? Who told you can't talk to me? I said, my board. I said, I hereby would like for you to go back to your board and ask him again, right now. And he said, no, I am to be a watchman on the wall. And I said, because, now I'm being funny. I'm like, fine, stay on the wall. I'll shout at you from down here. We can have a conversation. He's not having, he's like, this conversation is done. And then, by the way, what I'm also about to report now, with little Levi, don't do that. Don't throw cold water in people's faces. What I'm about to do now is also just me reporting. I don't recommend this unless the Spirit leads you like it led me at that moment. I said to him, brother, I am going to hug you. Samuel, no. Said, yes. I gave him fair warning, and then I moved in, and I gave him a hug. It wasn't one of these, you know why? Because I needed him to know that I am human, flesh and blood and sinew, and that I'm a father, a husband, a real person. I wanted him to feel my heart beating. It's not hard because there's not a whole lot of distance between my... I held him for a long time, a very uncomfortable long time. And And I knew once we had passed way beyond the this is really awkward, I was going to keep holding him because I knew there's pain in here that needs to be processed and transformed. He relaxed a little, and that's how I knew, okay, release. And he looked at me and he said, I like you. I didn't respond because I don't. But I love him. And that was the end. Amen. No, wait. There is no more YouTubing, at least about me or my friends. And once in a while, I get this Sabbath morning, happy Sabbath. And I gotta tell you, I know this silly story is maybe my way of showing you clear evidence that Jesus is right. We don't overcome with better evil, better bombs, better tweets, better hatred, this is not how the world gets better. It gets better when some of us say, I'm going to absorb it. I'm going to process it, and then I'm going to transform it so that it doesn't keep circulating in the world, this pain. And there's someone in your life, as you hear these words coming out of my mouth, you know who Jesus has brought to mind that things are not well with. And they haven't been for a long time. And maybe it's somebody you have to take a restraining order out and you keep praying for that person. But maybe there's somebody in your life today, right now, that you need to work it out with. Maybe it won't take a year of praying and emailing and texting and phone calling. Maybe it's a week of that, or maybe it's a day of that, but it needs to happen. And I pray that when you do it, that you will experience the miracle of going through a death and a resurrection. Jesus, on this beautiful day, we give you thanks for your example on the cross. I pray for people who will leave this place more committed to loving like you loved and you commanded us to love. And I pray a word of thanks in advance for the miracles you'll work in some broken relationships today that need to be healed. And I pray for that in your Son's name, oh God. Amen.